What's up, folks? Let's talk about a day 2.5 update to the Blast Rain of Trarthus skill gym and how I've been scaling it and some of the weird gimmicks that come with the spell or skill. Actually, this is an attack. But first, let's just dive into a map so I can show you guys what the mapping looks like at this moment in time. This is very much kind of a midway point between where I was and where I want to be at the moment. Mapping on this thing is pretty fun for me. But there has been certain little gimmicks and stuff that we have found out that maybe is not going to make it the most enjoyable for everybody. You basically just run around, you know, once you have your flask going, it'll be even easier and able to essentially stay phased all the time, run through the middle of the mobs, keep clicking like this, and things around you will die. And once your DPS gets up high enough, it should feel pretty good. Overall to kind of play the build. When it comes to, you know, the mercs and stuff, they're a little bit spicy on this setup currently because, I mean, they're spicy on everybody, but due to the way that the skill works and what ended up happening with the way that I was building it, they can be a bit tricky to deal with. But now that I have accuracy, they're a lot easier to deal with, and I'll explain that after the map here. But overall, it feels just like you would expect it to feel for a skill that has a giant AOL cone on it, has a bunch of damage, has a bunch of kind of pierce in its baked in, so you just walk around doing this. And of course, if you wanted to, you can enhance the clear of this thing way more by getting in a merc with like obliterations on it or something like that, and putting in grave binds, but those are pretty expensive at the moment, though that is something I'm probably gonna look into doing. Big thing for me is just survivability is a little low. Damage, I was in T15s for a while, but going out of T15s, coming back into T10s was kind of a smarter play, just to try to get more currency and stuff going, faster building up of my safe houses or alvas or whatever I'm doing to sell at the moment. So that's kind of why I came back into T10s for a little bit of a while, as well as farming thaumaturgical dust to be able to make myself the bow that I'm currently working on. And all of that stuff kind of coming together to do what I'm doing right now, which is just running T10s, running stuff like Alva, making temples, and so on and so forth. Overall feels pretty good. I'm not by no means very tanky or anything like that, but as long as I'm not too gung-ho, not too stupid about how I'm doing things and mapping, it feels decently okay. And because of the big AoE nature of the skill, I feel fine clearing, but I know for some people this clear would be a little bit too slow, and you'd be looking into different ideas on how to improve that. But for me, it's been perfectly fine as it currently sits, and I haven't really worried about it too much. And once I get a lot more damage, I'll be doing the same type of clear in T15, so for me, it'll essentially be a ranged version of Katabasis, as I hoped it would be, eventually, I think. But getting the damage to get there is a little bit trickier as a result of some of the things we've noticed in the last couple days on the skill, and just getting the items required to make that happen. So let's talk about those items. As you can see, general mapping feels pretty okay on the build. Nothing to write home about, but it feels okay even on some of the weirder layouts. So, a couple things we need to talk about right off the bat is Blast Rain of Trarthus has some weird scaling things on it. It's a little bit difficult to scale in the beginning, especially as a league starting setup. It really wants gym levels. So, like I said in the last video, I did end up buying the replica Dragon Fan for Divine. I don't know what their price is right now, but I got a decently good one, and I'm just going to stick with that just to get those levels. It really, really wants levels. Currently in the background, I'm leveling another whole set of 6 of them to try to get a 2120, just to get that extra level. Awakened Gyms would be huge for me, but my bow is still a pretty crap bow. It's a +2 socketed Gyms with a crafted on wed. This is something that kind of comes into play right away with it, is because the bow is a bit tricky to make if you are trying to make it from scratch. So I do have the base of it right now made. This is increased elemental damage with attacks T1 and damage over time T1 as well. The reason it is a bit tricky is you're going to have to end up buying yourself, there's a couple ways to do it. So you could either go for a T2 elemental damage with attacks by buying yourself a fractured damage over time, but those are really expensive right now because they're being used by some builds. You could buy yourself a fractured elemental damage with attacks that's T2, get a damage over time on there. There's not any fractured 86 bases, which is what you would need for T1. So to be able to do that, then what you want to do is you're going to be able to use the new recombobulator, and that's how I made it using 2 bases that I basically just bought above level 86 thicket bows with, because I wanted the attack speed, with nothing on them, and then I just rolled them with alterations and augmentations until I saw damage over time, and then I saw another one with elemental damage with attacks, and I smashed them together. It's a 10% chance, 10.8% chance to happen. I got it to happen on the 3rd try, even caught me off guard because that was pretty lucky as it is, but it's fairly overall a simple way of doing it. It's about 180 alterations to get one of the 2 rolls, so you just keep going on a bunch of bow bases until you get them. You get this. Then you do can have multi mods, cannot roll attack mods, exalted, remove the meta mods, put on can have multiple mods, put on +2 socketed supports, and fire damage over time, and the bow is done. But that step, and why I'm stuck at this state, is of course all of those things were multiple divines. So it's about 5 to 6 divines for the next step in making the final bow, which is kind of what's got me off guard. Is I'm going from a very starter bow to a very final bow. So I'm going from a 10 chaos bow to a 5 to 6 divine bow right off the gate. It's going to be a massive jump when I get there, because then I'm going to be able to put in awakened gems and all that stuff into that, but it is kind of a lull in the middle of the build. I think you could probably go for like a middle of the ground bow, trying to get +2 socketed things, bow gems, or +1 socketed with damage over time, and craft on wed, or stuff like that. There's probably stuff on the market. It would just come down to linking and how often you want to link your bow over and over again, how often you want to change those kind of things out. It depends on you, how you want to scale and how you want to go through that process. That's just something I've noticed as being a weird step in between. Last time when I did Frostblades of Catabasis, I just struck the mechanic Colomac and I was good to go. So I didn't really mess with this crafting step in between. This time I have to kind of mess with it a little bit more. But overall, it's not the end of the world, and it's somewhat working out in to use the new recombobulator that's like pick this, pick that, put them together, you're good to go. The big thing with that is you do have to make sure that both bases are item level 86, because if you're going for a T1 wed roll like my bow has, if it's not an 86, it has to choose the right base or something, because it cuts the chance in half. So if you have 185, 186, it's a 4.86 or something % chance, and if you have 286s, it's a 10.08% chance. So definitely keep that in mind if you're going for that, as that you have to use level 86 bases. The next thing is area of effect does actually not affect the skill. So if you look at me where I'm clicking right now, you'll see that it goes up there to where it says Orthodox with the O. If I put in increased area of effect and click again, you'll see it goes to the exact same spot. So it's essentially area effect doesn't seem to be doing anything for the base radius of the skill, even though it has like a base secondary radius of 3.5 meters. That seems to be unable to be affected by anything, so area effect scaling is not something you can do on that. And unlike Frostblades of Catabasis, it does not do area damage, it does a debuff, so concentrated effect is not worth using on there either. So your links are going to be a little bit different, and you're not going to be able to scale AoE from using something like this, or even going golems. So that's kind of a downside of the build in general there, so definitely keep that in mind. The second weird thing is you are going to need accuracy. I was originally thinking that I wasn't going to need to actually get accuracy on my tree down here, or I wasn't going to need to get accuracy on one of my rings or anything like that, but you actually do end up getting accuracy, because while the wave that comes out does not hit, which is fine, the initial impact bullet, which is coming down from that, which also does the debuff, that does hit, and the wave starts after the impact point. If you have no accuracy, you can't hit with the impact arrow down, and there's a dead zone right on top of your character, because you can't actually aim the wave anywhere near your character. And so when you have a lot of these mercenaries jumping up onto you, flicker striking to you, or leap slamming or whatever, there's actually a dead zone in the middle of your character. So if you don't have accuracy, you will not be able to hit that dead zone. Now, do you need 100% accuracy? Probably not. Overall, you'll probably be okay with like 94, whatever I have right now. But it's something to keep in mind. You will need accuracy to make sure that that initial impact point definitely hits, and especially if you're going to try to do ballistas or anything like that with the skill gem, you're going to need it even more there. So do keep that in mind. You're going to need accuracy. As far as the rest of the scaling is concerned, I've kind of tried to do as much as I can with as cheap a gear as I can. Like I said, Replica Fang, stuff like that. From there, getting damage over time, increased damage with bow skills, wed, stuff like that on quivers. Right now, I'm looking for a quiver upgrade. There's like 3 on the market. Very, very few things available for this build on the market currently in terms of just like buy off the shelf and go. So a lot of it is probably I will also recombobulate myself one of these quivers with damage over time, weapon damage with bow skills, and then craft on elemental damage with attacks afterwards, and then just see what else I get on the quiver, because realistically, projectile speed, attack speed, resistances, anything like that on the quiver outside of those 3 things is perfectly fine with me. So that's probably the route I'm going to be taking for making the quiver. So the way I'm making my thaumaturgical dust at the moment, 336 of it, and I've used the recombobulator 4 or 5 times already, is I'm actually spec'd into the node on the tree for Refiner's Bargain. Go Refiner's Bargain, go through here, grab yourself the Ghosted Exiles, and then stack on the rest of the exile stuff. Ignore this mob because holy cow, that amount of life right now would feel really bad. But basically, go this node, go Ghosted Exiles, and just go mapping with the rest of the exile nodes and stuff like that. Maybe Alva if you want to go for that route. And you just get dust as you map. You're not going to dust yourself a mage blood from an exile, so you're perfectly safe on that, so don't worry about it. The chances of that happening are finite, very fine. So if you want dust and you don't want to mess with the city, highly recommend that. It's been a great way of getting a bunch of dust into my builds, bunch of things that I can use the recombobulator on, and then also start, focusing on doing more of that type of crafting. So the quiver is probably going to be made in the same way, and that's pretty good for that. In terms of the belt, we actually did switch over to the Archon's tools because it's a pretty dang good belt. If we go over here and I go turn off both of these things and turn my skitterbots on, you'll notice right now I'm getting 24 chill, 36 shocks, and 22 scorch just from wearing the belt, just from those 3 skitter boys running around, and with that 20 mana reservation efficiency combined with maybe when I anoint sovereignty and get some mana reservation efficiency on my helmet, I might actually be able to put back in things like malevolence and maybe aspect of the spider, maybe discipline, could be that as well. I can't remember. There's a lot of auras I could put into the build alongside of what I have currently, so it's really beneficial for that and the Scorch and the boosted versions of those, because I have them bound to unbound elements with skitterbots, is really, really nice. So the belt is actually really nice. It's a really good belt. It does a whole lot of work, and you can buy them fairly cheap. It wasn't that much. It was like 35 chaos for like a 20 reservation with a 71, so do highly recommend that as an option if you're going into that. Is it going to stay in this build permanently? I'm not entirely sure, but for now it is a very good addition to it. And because we are running Purity of Elements to then negate the belt itself, we get all those elemental resistances from it. We get the immunity for elements ourselves, and our merc gets all that stuff as well, so we can be a little bit more life heavy or stuff like that on the merc's gear, and know that the merc is going to be resistance capped anyway. So that's also really, really good overall for the build, meaning also that our gear doesn't have to be that resistance heavy, because we're going to have a little bit more easier resistance time, and we can give up the belt a little bit easier because that doesn't need to be a 3 resistance line there either. So a little bit easier on gearing for that. As far as the rings, we're going to be looking for exactly kind of this kind of stuff. You got resistances, lightning resistance, accuracy on at least one of them, wed, energy shield, evasion rating, very nice ring. I wish I had a better implicit, because eventually I do plan to go CI, but at the moment I'm not CI yet, so for now it's fine for me to use this. These types of rings are what you're going to be looking for, and you do want to get 2 with evasion rating, just so you could use the increased max energy shield with both rings equipped from there as well. And that's kind of where I'm wondering how I'm going to get Ash into the build, because now I don't have the ability to run the prolonged devastation in one of my things, so maybe I'm going to give the merc some Zoph's amulet to give Ash that way or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how Ash is coming into the build, but we're going to get it in there some way, shape, or form. Just don't know what it is yet as of this moment. The rest of the gear is literally just, I bought a Restless Ward because it had some good evasion and energy shield, and we're up to 20k evasion, and we have some energy shield going. I really need to get this number bigger, but that would require me to switch out my helmet to a much bigger piece, and probably going to start working on that once I finish the bow up all the way through. And then along with the gloves and boots, those need heavy upgrades as well. So a lot of stuff to do in terms of gearing, in terms of defenses, and that's kind of why the build still flops over a little bit, but just things to keep in mind, and little gimmicks I've learned about the build. Overall, the scaling is still exactly what I expected it to be. It hasn't really changed. It hasn't really gone up or down in any way. It's a little weird to scale right now. I'm going for these types of big old clusters with increased effect and a bunch of bow damage or fire damage on them, going all the way around, getting the 12 clusters here, and then probably going to chuck one up here as well once I drop all the life nodes from this area, and then just put them up here instead. I'm not entirely sure if that's the best way to do it. Maybe it will go back to smaller larges and use the notables, and then try to get damage over time multiplier from different places of that nature. I'm not convinced on anything yet, and of course I do need a lot more percent energy shield from somewhere, so those gyms might be a little bit different how I have to path for that to work out in the long run. Could be that I have to, I don't know, maybe come up here and do that instead. We'll figure that out once I get to the defensive side of things. At the moment, it's fine for me to be a bit squishy, not worry about too much of the refinement of my gear, just wear something that ends up working, and it's so far been so good. Overall, that's kind of where the build is at the moment. I have a lot of upgrades I still need to make. I really need to finish this bow and be able to put it on, get the awakened gems in there, get all that stuff going. The color pattern for it's going to be red, red, blue, red, green, green, so it's not too bad to just go over here and do the crafting bench for red sockets. Probably going to be doing the other one. 2 red socket. Probably just going to be doing this one a couple times and just hoping for one more red. It should be like 500 chromes in total, which isn't that much currency and for the whole scope of things. So just click on that a couple times, get one more red, and then we're going to be able to put in our skill gems there. Buy an empower, start getting that leveled up. Buy the awakened gems, start getting those leveled up, and then we should be in a much better spot in terms of the build overall once we get that level scaling happening, because level scaling is such a big factor of it. This is going to go from a level 25 gym to a level 33 gym, and that's a lot of power gained overall for the base damage, and then of course the scaling of that damage from there, and then work on the reservation efficiencies to get malevolence back in the build so that we get that big damage over time multiplier from there as well. So yeah, overall it's been good. The build is in an okay state. I'm kind of surprised that I needed accuracy. I'm kind of surprised that I don't have area effect scaling like I was hoping to. I'm kind of surprised that the weapon jump up is kind of this weird thing in the middle, because I wasn't expecting it to be that big of a difference, but it really is that big of a difference. But it's all good. It's still fun. It's a very fun build to defensively play, do all this stuff with. So I'm just going to keep going with it. Hopefully get the weapon done today or tomorrow, and then maybe the next video is the final update. Who knows? We shall see. If you have any questions, do check out the Twitch streams or check them out down below by all means. And if you want to see the final version of this guide, do subscribe. I will put it up when I'm getting it done. See you there. Peace.